If you've been following the NFT trend lately, you'll likely know that while there is a lot of hype within the space right now, there's also a ton of frankly terrible projects. In fact, I would not be surprised at all if over 99% of all NFT projects became worthless in just a few years.
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
So in today's video, we're going to first go through a checklist of criteria for picking out potentially winning NFTs and also existing websites and methods for finding them out very early on. Before I begin though, it would be absolutely awesome if you could just do me a very quick favor by gently, of course, smashing a like button for the YouTube algorithm, and you can also consider subscribing to my channels for more cutting edge videos just like this one. And with that, let's get started with the video. So first up, let's go through some of the most important criteria in my opinion to check off when considering investing in any NFT. And at number 1, I believe it's extremely important to look for mainstream, long-lasting appeal in an NFT. For example, you'll typically want to prefer recognizable and well-liked brands and characters and franchises like Marvel or DC Comics, or even perhaps in the future Pokemon, or also OG original projects like Bored Ape Yacht Club and CryptoPunks. Now obviously it's going to be quite difficult and expensive to get involved with some of these older NFT projects I just mentioned, especially since celebrities and whales have already bought them up and hyped them up. But as I'll go through later, there are going to be some decent ways to help you spot out upcoming projects that are also not scams that have high potential to blow up. But first, onto my next criteria, one of which is how difficult an NFT is to replicate. Now to illustrate this point, let's actually revisit the examples CryptoPunks and the Bored Ape Yacht Club and perhaps any imitators. And besides being indeed limited edition NFTs that are registered on the blockchain, there really isn't anything else to them other than being JPEGs, which people can still in fact screenshot and put as their profile pictures, right? Or even just imitate them just by redrawing something similar.
Of course!
Yes, there are indeed ways to authenticate and prove one's ownership of an NFT, but in my opinion, compared to a physical object, for example a trading card, a procedurally generated design, especially one that's so easy to design, is going to be a lot easier to replicate, and thus people lose respect for it and value of that object compared to like a physical painting or a trading card that's a lot more difficult to make a perfect knockoff of, especially considering the specific material used in the design and just the specific ways that they're printed.
I love gold! The look of it, the taste of it, the smell of it, the texture.
Secondly, people appreciate, respect, and thus give value to pieces of art that really demonstrate and showcase an artist's talent, taste, as well as message, which in my opinion, many of these NFTs do not.
That's weird.
So while most of the truly OG projects like again CryptoPunks and Bored Ape Yacht Club will likely hold on to quite a bit of value because of their cultural significance, many of the imitators on the other hand will likely just be clutter and will not last very long. And besides real artists, so to speak, work being less replicable, there are also ways to make NFTs just more complex, like for example with music or in-game items and just 3D objects, or imagine something like a planet, virtual planet being an NFT, a virtual mansion and things like that, right? And on to my last sort of criterion, and to add to that previous point, having some kind of utility for an NFT can be a great bonus as well. For example, having them be virtual reality assets or things like real estate, again like your, for example, virtual planet where you can build your own stuff on it, amusement facilities, and even charge people for using them could be very interesting. So those are my main criteria for spotting out high potential, diamond hands, long-term investment potential NFTs. And with that, now let's get on to some of the websites as well as methods for helping you scout out some of these projects before they really blow up into the mainstream. First, I'm going to go over one of the most popular NFT platforms, Opensea, and give you a few pointers on how you can potentially identify winning NFTs on this platform. But to use it, you will have to first install something called MetaMask, which is a Chrome extension or a phone app, which will actually serve as not only your wallet or crypto wallet for receiving payments and also paying for NFTs, but also a way to securely and uniquely with your own ID log into the marketplace. And for that, I'll actually link up another video tutorial below from my other channel that'll show you exactly how you can quickly set up MetaMask and also even use Opensea to list your own NFTs and buy and sell and trade on the platform. But with that, let's now get into specifically how you can filter for or filter your search for out of all this clutter, right? Especially since people don't really have to pay any minting fees for listing on NFT anymore, or listing on Opensea anymore, other than their first NFT. So again, for their first NFT that they list, they do have to pay a small minting fee, but afterwards they don't. So that's gonna be a less of a barrier of entry for sellers to want to list a whole bunch of NFTs on the platform, right? Which is all the more important that you know exactly what to look for. So the first thing I want to give you, the first tip I want to give you is that you definitely want to look for projects with the blue check mark, okay, which means that they are verified. And in order to become verified, it's not so much like Twitter or Instagram where you have to be somebody famous or have a bunch of followers, for example, but rather it's based on the number of sales, I believe, that a particular collection, NFT collection receives. So for example, here just coming into the page or marketplace, we already seen, you know, at least one verified collection here with the blue, indicated by the blue check mark. And if I scroll through, we'll see some other ones like this monkey bet DAO and so on and so forth, right? Like the cool cats. This is somewhat famous as well. But another way that you can quickly find these out is to also go over to collections on the left side. And here you'll be able to find out some of the more, or look at some of the more popular ones. Although many of these directly from the collections filter here will likely be a bit too popular or too mainstream, which means that the price point will have already shot up likely have already shot up from when they were listed. So again, a project having one of these blue check marks is a great way to filter out, especially other projects that are trying to replicate it, and just a bunch of, you know, poorer projects that may not have sold anything at all, right? So definitely look for the blue check mark. And secondly, when you're looking at a specific collection or project, you also want to ideally have a lower supply versus demand, right? Because when there's high demand for something and the supply is limited, there's going to be a higher price as a result, right? So especially when you're looking at these metrics, if the floor price is going to go up, this will usually mean that the number of owners is going up, the number of items is somewhat limited, and the volume traded is increasing, which means that more and more people are buying in, which means that the price is somewhat likely going to be going up. Now, another website that'll really help in researching projects is rarity.tools, where you can actually find, as you can see, a lot of upcoming projects. And if you scroll all the way down, they also have the top collection sorted by different metrics like 7-day volume, total volume, 7-day average price, owner count, etc. But this is a great way to especially look for newer drops, such as, for example, if you see this one called Superlative Secret Society Official. This was actually one of the first projects that we spotted right on Opensea. If I just scroll back up, it's right here, right? This is the first blue checkmark that we encountered. So this can definitely be a potential project to look into. And the way that you would look into it would be, again, number of items they have, number of owners compared to that, its current floor price, as well as the trajectory of it, as well as the volume traded and whether or not it's accelerating, right? And also some of the other criteria I listed out in terms of replicability, because this does seem somewhat easy to replicate, so it's not something that I'm super fond of, but it does seem a bit more artistic, so you definitely want to look for all the metrics that I mentioned previously as well, right? And besides that, on rarity.tools, for any project, NFT collection or project, you can also click into it and look at any of its Discord, community, Twitter page, Instagram, and website to see whether or not they have additional utility. For example, some NFTs allow you to gain access to certain, virtual events, or, whatever it is, or, like an NFT game, for example. You can also look at how active the communities are. Usually if they're very active, that's a good sign. And, whether or not there's like mainstream interest within any of these projects are definitely things to look out for. And moving on to some different platforms, and I also want to mention that many of the projects listed on Opensea are not really curated, even though some of them may have these blue checkmarks, but I'm personally not the most interested in those, but rather have priority on some of the other ones that are perhaps from more famous artists, for example, or even mainstream franchises and brands. Those are more of my focus. And also, as I mentioned before, if something that is more complex, like a virtual digital item as an NFT, that that would interest me a lot more as well, especially if that becomes more commonplace. And I think that'll be some sort of tipping point that'll make NFTs really, really popular when they have that sort of utility and difficult to replicate ability. Alright, with that, on to our next platform. We have Maker's Place, which is actually another NFT marketplace, but this one is actually somewhat unique in that they not only collaborate with a lot of more renowned artists, and you'll see, based on the fact that many of their pieces are in fact more artistic, so to speak, or at least in terms of how they're designed as pieces of art, they're a lot more complex, and also the artists are actually renowned artists, right? So this is definitely a website where you can find even names that you might recognize, as previously they featured projects with Boss Logic, who designs a lot of Marvel images, illustrations, as well as Shakira, who is a famous artist. They actually did a collab and released an NFT, and I believe Dune, the movie that just came out, is also doing an NFT through Maker's Place, and you can actually get the latest project drops or get notified of the latest drops just by signing up for their email list, right? So if you scroll all the way to the bottom, they have a place to fill in your email, and I'm actually subscribed to this, so I'll know whenever they have new projects coming out. Not all of them I'm interested in, but it's a good way to stay informed. And besides Maker's Place, another one that's somewhat similar is Nifty Gateway. The projects on here might be a bit more expensive, along with I think the gas fees, but this is also a website that curates actually a lot of their NFTs and works with actual famous artists to produce NFTs, right? So this means typically many of the drops that they have and the NFTs that they have, in my opinion, will see a lot more long-term value if you decide to invest for the long run. So this is definitely another highly recommended website for NFTs. And they're also legit, they're owned by Gemini. Anyhow, you can also sign up for their email list. And lastly, not lastly, but next, there's also NFT virtual reality platforms. The Sandbox is one that is very, very prominent, although it's still sort of in beta right now, but people like Snoop Dogg, famous celebrity obviously, have actually hosted virtual events on here. First of all, the Sandbox is like a virtual reality metaverse, so to speak, game where people can log on to buy land, interact with whatever's built on those pieces of land. As you can see, many big companies and brands also own their virtual land within the Sandbox, like again Snoop Dogg himself, some of the various crypto or NFT related companies, an Atari, like a game maker Atari, and even the TV show The Walking Dead, right? So this is definitely a very legit project, which has, in my opinion, a bright future, right? So this is definitely something that you can consider investing in. Again, any investment in NFTs, in my opinion, should be done with money that you can spare, that you can potentially lose. So like fun money or like speculation money, right? So you definitely, I personally don't treat it as like any sort of main investment, right? Just sort of a disclaimer. But anyhow, with Sandbox, although you can't play the game just yet, you can in fact interact with their marketplace. And I'll actually link up another video down below that'll show you how you can, if you want, create your own NFTs very easily using their free software, sort of dragging and dropping in to create these sort of block voxels. They're called voxels. These sort of Minecraftian block-shaped 3D artwork. As NFTs, you can actually list on the Sandbox, or you can list on Opensea as well to sell. You can easily design those if you want, but otherwise you can also buy and invest in these if you want, right? And they also have pieces of land. If I scroll all the way down, they have land, they have various types of NFTs. Some of these are seasonal, as you can see, right? So we have like Christmas ones. Christmas is in a couple of months. Previously, Halloween's coming up, so you'll also find Halloween related NFTs, and so on and so forth. And besides Sandbox, there are some other NFT metaverses. The biggest ones are probably just Sandbox as well as Decentraland. So Decentraland should definitely pay close attention to as well. And any of these, pages, organizations, companies you can follow on social media, Twitter, that's a great way to get information about them, right? Just go on Twitter and follow as many of these high profile pages. Like I personally follow the Sandbox and turn on notifications so that whenever they have new events, even giveaways, updates to their platform, I'll know and be potentially one of the first people to get in on it, right? That's sort of the point here, to get in on a trend before it blows up. Because after something blows up, usually the price also skyrockets and moons, right? And after that, it'll be a bit too late to get involved, right? That's typically the case. Now, lastly, I just want to quickly mention that to go along with this advice or piece of advice to follow, various Twitter pages, you also want to look at sort of mainstream pop culture type companies and brands, right? Like DC Comics, for example. DC Comics has recently given away their own NFTs in collaboration with an NFT platform called Palm NFT Studio, where you could actually you would just sign up, you can actually get some free NFTs. I actually got 2, but as you can see, you can't see them right now because of high traffic to the website. But anyhow, my point is to definitely go and follow some of these mainstream brands and franchises, especially to look out for when they start getting involved with digital collectibles and things like NFTs, right? Such as, again, DC Comics, which actually were giving away NFTs. So a lot of times when you get involved early or try to follow some of the news very closely, you'll be able to capitalize on some of these opportunities, such as these giveaways, right? So you definitely want to go on to Twitter, follow some of these pages, and not only do you want to follow the franchises, different platforms you can also look at, right? Such as, for example, Coinbase is looking to launch their own NFT marketplace or wallet, right? So this is definitely something that I'm paying very, very close attention to, as Coinbase is not only the largest cryptocurrency brokerage, but if they do NFTs, that'll open up a lot more possibilities for this type of technology and for artists to list and sell NFTs and perhaps do other things with them. So basically, just follow the news as much as you can, try to filter out the clutter, look out for the main criteria being difficulty to replicate, mainstream appeal and long-lasting appeal, as well as some kind of utility as a very nice bonus. And with that is pretty much all I wanted to show you in today's video. If you want, you can actually check out my other NFT and cryptocurrency tutorials. I'll link in the description box below. And with that, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. Peace.